Irritable bowel alone is like 30% of the population, which is shocking. About 70% of the immune system is based in the gut. If you're getting colds and flus or autoimmune conditions, any sort of immune issues, there is a gut component to that as well.
So how quickly can dietary changes start to positively affect the gut microbiomes? I actually have gone off gluten recently, and the biggest change, I expected to feel a difference in my gut, but you know, the biggest change was brain fog. Within the week, it was like so sharp.
95% of serotonin is produced in the gut and 5% in the brain. It's not like psychosomatic or whatever. It's like, no, my stress levels affect my gut bacteria and my gut function, but also my gut bacteria and my gut function are also affecting my brain health.
So what percentage of people do you see who think they have gut issues, but it's something else like stress or hormones or food intolerance?
It's a good question, but I guess...
What are 3 things that we can do right now to unlock better gut health?
Yeah, good question.
Welcome to SWIISH Wellness Unlocked, the podcast that cuts through the noise and gets straight to what works. We're your hosts, Sally Obermeter
and Maha Corbett.
We're founders of a global wellness brand that's been changing lives for over a decade. Every episode, we're going to explore the latest trends. We'll dive into breakthrough science and insights from leading experts to help you live, feel, and look your best. No fluff, just facts that work. Let's unlock it.
Is it possible that the bloating, breakouts, or brain fog you're dealing with have nothing to do with your skin or your mind and everything to do with your gut? Well, gut health is a hot topic, but there's still so much confusion about what really helps or harms it. Today, I'm chatting to gut health expert Belinda Kirkpatrick, a naturopath and clinical nutritionist. She's here to unpack the science, clear up the myths, and find out what your gut might be trying to tell you. Let's unlock it. How many Australians, or globally, are estimated to suffer from gut-related issues like IBS, bloating, or food intolerances?
There are literally so many people suffering from all of these issues. I think even irritable bowel alone is like 30% of the population, which is shocking. And around about 50% of Australians will say that they do suffer from some digestive issues.
That's like 1 in 2. That's between you and I.
Yeah. Who's it going to be?
It'll be me.
Oh,
actually, it's not going to be either of us. It's going to be someone else.
We're fine. Yeah.
We're fine. So how quickly can dietary changes start to positively affect the gut microbiome? So are there studies that show timelines?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you do major changes, like say, for example, you go from an animal-based diet to a completely plant-based or maybe even vegan diet, then you're going to start to see those changes really quickly in up to kind of like even 3 days, right? But that's like a big change, right? So most people are probably not doing that. For more of a moderate or minor change, then you're looking anywhere from sort of like days to weeks. If you don't though, I guess, like sort of consolidate that and that doesn't become your normal, then say, for example, you do a couple of weeks of eating healthily, for example, you might start to see some gut changes, which is amazing. But as soon as you go back to your normal diet, those changes are pretty much reversed. So it's great in that we can actually influence our gut microbiome reasonably quickly, but we also need to consolidate it if we want to get that long-term change.
With those drastic changes, you know, and so for example, whether it's going, say, from a meat-based to a plant-based, but I'm thinking sort of even more extreme, like say going off processed sugar or off processed foods, or off gluten, for example, is the time frame kind of similar?
Yeah, it's probably going to be more in that moderate to minor to moderate changes. So anywhere from sort of like days to weeks to months. So I'd probably be thinking probably weeks, but everybody's going to be really different and it depends on your gut health, you know, what you're born with, the luck of the draw type of thing.
Where you're at currently.
Yeah, where you're at currently, then that's going to make a big difference to see how quickly you notice any of those changes.
Interesting. Just by the by, as I actually have gone off gluten recently, and the biggest change, I expected to feel a difference in my gut, but you know, the biggest change was brain fog.
Yeah.
Brain fog be gone, within the week. I was like so sharp, so like on top of everything. Sally was saying to me, did you see the email? Yep, I saw the email.
Oh, wow.
I've read it, I've processed it, I've replied to it, nearly fell over.
It's amazing because when we're looking at like sort of, I guess, our gut health, so many people are focused on what our gut is doing. But say, for example, like gluten-free, for example, I always say, you know, can you please also track like mood, energy, skin, you know, like your immune system, like other symptoms as well. Like you said, brain fog's a really big one.
Such a big one.
Are you still off the gluten?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
And I found it was about finding the right bread. The Helgas.
Yeah.
Anyway. Shout out to Helgas for making it easy. Okay, so what percentage of people do you see who think they have gut issues, but it's something else like stress or hormones or food intolerances?
It's a good question, but I guess, look, I see a lot of people with gut issues, but I guess it's finding what is the gut issue. So is it stress or hormones or whatever? So I guess like that question, like they're kind of one and the same. You know, we sort of see our bodies, or I guess like a sort of traditional way or non-traditional, an orthodox way of seeing our bodies is that like each system is kind of completely different. But, you know, if you're having gut issues, but it is because of or it's influenced by your hormones, then we're needing to be looking at your hormones, addressing your hormones, but also looking at your gut health. And, you know, if it's being affected by hormones, for example, then we still need to be looking at both of them. So quite a lot of the time I would say it is because of stress or hormones or diet or food intolerances, but they're affecting your gut health and giving you gut symptoms. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. So does that mean that, say, when somebody comes in to see you, you know, you're trying to paint a holistic view of like what's going on for them in case it's one thing potentially causing the other?
Yeah, and I guess that kind of essentially is what naturopathy is, right? So say, for example, you go to a doctor, then generally you've only got a really short amount of time. So you might say like, I'm really bloated, I'm getting reflux. They're like, oh gosh, that's not good. You know, do you want to try these medications, say some proton pump inhibitors for the reflux or whatever you're getting? So you've just got this really short amount of time to try to fix that issue. When you do see a naturopath, I guess, you know, you probably have anywhere from half an hour to an hour or whatever in that consultation, and they're asking you about your gut, but they're also then asking you about your hormones and your diet and your sleep and your stress levels.
And energy.
Right. And so you end up then being able to kind of paint a picture where somebody might think they're just going to get gut sort of, say, for example, supplements or other things, but we end up actually looking at their hormones or inflammation, or do they have endometriosis or whatever. So it is really important that, well, from my point of view, obviously with what I do, it's probably not that, it's probably obvious, is to actually treat the body as a whole.
So fascinating. Let's talk probiotics. So they're pretty huge. I mean, they've been huge for a while. Seem to be having a moment right now where everybody's talking about probiotics. So are they effective? Do we need to clear up any misconceptions about them?
Love me a probiotic. I also love, by the way, that we're actually having a podcast on gut health, right? You know, this wouldn't have happened maybe 10 years ago but definitely not 20 years ago. We're talking about bowel movements and gut health and all that kind of stuff. So it is really the foundation of everything. So thank you for that. So probiotics, absolutely love them. They can be fantastic. When people say, oh, I tried probiotics, but they didn't work, which often people come and say, they're generally not on the right probiotic, or maybe they're not taking the right dose, or they have a brand that the probiotics aren't, you know, effective by the time that they get them. When people say, and I say, oh, what sort of probiotics were you on? And they're like, oh, I don't know, like just like a capsule. And I often sort of think that, you know, it's like saying, oh, I'm on medicine. And you're like, well, which medicine? You're like, I don't know, like it's one from the chemist. You know, so there really are different strains that have been shown to be effective for different conditions, you know, whether that be mood or metabolism or allergies or bloating or constipation or diarrhea. Like there are.
So they're that specific.
They can, they can be really specific. So, you know, you can get a broad, like a good general broad spectrum probiotic that kind of does a bit of everything. And a lot of people will find that is also really effective, which is great.
So like grabbing a probiotic drink at the supermarket, say.
Yeah.
What do we, because I think for a lot of people, I think that they go, oh, that's great, I'm having probiotics. You know, I know that probiotics are good for my gut health.
Yes.
Let me just grab this from the fridge or from the shelf or whatever.
And depending on what that product is, it could be really effective. So say, for example, like kombucha, like that can be good for gut health, which is great. Kefir, that's a great probiotic drink. If it's like, say, for example, like a flavored yogurt that's got probiotics added into it, it's probably going to be less effective. So again, it's whether that, like, so if general gut health, then adding probiotics in is great, and fermented foods and things like that. If you're trying to improve a specific condition, it's definitely worth trying, because if you can get it through food, and particularly if it's a whole food rather than some super processed drink that they've added a couple of bits of lactobacilli into, if that works for you, then great.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Okay, perfect. All right, so let's jump into the questions. What is the gut microbiome? Like, what do we even mean when we say that?
Yeah.
So we talk about gut health, and then you hear the words gut microbiome. Like, what's the microbiome?
What even is it? Yeah. So the microbiome is like really specific, or it's a range of different bacteria that we've got in our digestive system that make up our kind of gut health. And there's all sorts of different types of probiotic, or good bacteria and opportunistic bacteria, maybe bad bacteria in there. And I like to almost think of it like a rainforest. So many different species. There'll be some dominant species in there as well. And I guess you might, like in the rainforest, there might be loads of ferns, for example. So like hopefully in your gut, if the ferns in the rainforest are the most dominant and there's less weeds, for example, you're like, that's maybe that's a good balance. I could be getting that wrong, by the way. My rainforest analogy might be off. But when we bring it back to the body, which I do know about, it might be that you've got, good amounts of good bacteria and less opportunistic bacteria in the gut. So the balance is kind of like nice and healthy. You've got the gut-associated lymphoid tissue that have that control the immune system. You've got bacteria in there that help to, for example, like the estrobiome. So that basically helps to metabolize estrogen, can even produce small amounts of estrogen. Hello, postmenopausal women.
That's in the gut?
Keep your gut health good. Yup.
Oh.
Small amounts of a mild type of estrogen. But once we lose our estrogen, we're happy for small amounts of mild estrogen.
Totally.
So looking after your gut health and not starting, I'll start at 50, start when you're younger, so that rainforest has the diversity that you want it to have.
And presumably we're born with a rainforest, right? But then how does it alter, as we kind of develop and over time? Is it food, our environment?
Yeah. So we're born with that. We're born with our rainforest, so to speak. And so, what our parents or our mother is taking in pregnancy. So are there good bacteria there? What is she exposed to? What is your birth like? What is the vaginal microbiome like if you had a vaginal delivery? I know a lot of people, if they do have a C-section birth, might be like, oh, my child didn't get that big gulp of my vaginal flora on the way out, that set up their immune system. And often in that situation, we might do baby probiotics for the baby, and I sort of will also assure them that breast milk has good bacteria in there as well.
Yes.
But for somebody who works a lot in fertility, and I test a lot of vaginal microbiomes, that it's a home test, by the way. I'm not actually testing. That the lack of good bacteria in nearly every vaginal microbiome that I see is outstanding. Like I'm just blown away by the fact there is no lactobacilli in so many women.
Well, I think first of all, a lot of people wouldn't know that there was a vaginal microbiome.
Yeah, right? It's another area of microbiome.
Totally. So that's the first thing, or that it's I guess an area that we also need to be looking after as well. So it's like when you say that you can't believe that there's the lack of the good bacteria. I don't think a lot of us would know that there should be good bacteria.
Yeah. So you want to have a really lactobacilli dominant vagina, basically. Yes. And so that helps to keep your vagina nice and acidic, which is how you want it to be, to keep thrush away and candida away and infections and things like that. It helps to kind of actually improve the immune system in there as well.
So you want that to be acidic, but then with your gut microbiome, you want that to be a little bit alkaline? Or?
Well, I mean, more alkaline than the vagina. Yes. Yeah. So, I guess the vagina is getting things directly put in it, let's say. So it needs to have that kind of acidity there.
Yes.
Whereas in the digestive system, it's gone through the acidity of the stomach and,
and then into the gut. Great. And so, why is the gut referred to as our second brain?
Yeah, good one. So the gut actually, produces so many different neurotransmitters as well. So serotonin, for example, which is our happy hormone, 95% of serotonin is produced in the gut and 5% in the brain.
Wow.
Actually mind-blowing, excuse the pun.
Yes.
So, looking after your gut health is so important. And back to your question that I totally got sidetracked with the vaginal microbiome and didn't ask, I didn't actually answer how, how do we get a better microbiome or what kind of happens is it's diet. So we got that initial, yes, how you're born and, whatever, that bit you can't control. So let that go, right? What you eat, what are your stress levels like? Do you sleep enough? I mean, sleep can help your microbiome. Do you drink enough water? Are your bowels regular? Do you eat fiber? Are you eating too much sugar, which encourages the growth of the bad bacteria? So there's so much diet and lifestyle stuff that can make such a big difference in that area, but then flows on to things like, your brain health, because so much of that is there. And we've got this sort of nerve, it's called the vagus nerve, and it runs from your brain to your gut. Now that nerve is what we call a bidirectional nerve. So that basically means that what's happening in your brain, so say for example, we're really stressed, that can directly affect your gut health. It's not like it's not like psychosomatic or whatever. It's like, no, my stress levels affect my gut bacteria and my gut function, but also my gut bacteria and my gut function are also affecting my brain health. And so it may be even in your brain fog example where you were like, oh, when I'm eating food that inflames my gut, even though I'm not necessarily feeling it as a gut issue, and I take that food away, my brain function is better, right? And so it's not always as direct and immediate as that, particularly with things like depression and anxiety. But, if you've got a lot of, your gut can produce cortisol, so your gut can make you stressed.
Wow.
But yet also too, the cortisol that produced by your adrenal glands can also then affect your gut health. So we're just this one whole thing.
Yes. And if you had to prioritize, because I mean, sometimes I think it can feel so overwhelming, like, okay, I need to, get more sleep, be less stressed, eat better. Like, the list is so long that, how would you prioritize? Or if you can only do a couple of things like to really focus on, I mean, look, asking for a friend, mother of young children has a business.
What was your breakfast again this morning?
Yeah, I know, a long black coffee, but how would you, I guess,
triage
have
it.
the most, kind of.
Food is medicine.
Great.
So even if you can't control stress levels, the kids are crazy, you didn't get sleep. I mean, hopefully you can try to catch up on the weekend or make sure you go to bed early and you're not just up doom scrolling and what have you. So all those things, there's workarounds, exercise, maybe, obviously try to get all those things done. But if you were choosing one thing, it's eat a balanced whole foods diet with minimal processed foods, minimal sugar, lots of fiber, and you will find, maybe not the day you started doing it, but over time, that is what's going to be the foundation of everything.
So say that you do that, and but all other things being equal, could we expect potentially to notice, say, a reduction? Like I might cope better with stress, for example.
Yeah.
Or I might, even though things are stressful, I'm still in a good mood sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And so it might be subtle. And so, depending on the level of stress, in your life and things like that. But certainly
day-to-day stress.
Certainly, look, absolutely, because you're not getting these highs and lows and your blood sugar level crashes and things, your gut health is better. But at the same time too, we definitely would notice for a lot of people, say for example, period symptoms. So even if you look at like a month, right? So for women who are having monthly-ish cycles, period pain, premenstrual symptoms, mood, food cravings, like that whole sort of like periody symptom thing. When you're eating well, low sugar, low caffeine, low alcohol, lots of fruits and vegetables, lots of healthy proteins, like they will be like, oh my gosh, that period was like so much better. So if you can think to relate it back to that.
Yes.
So that's where people are like, oh no, sometimes they have good cycles and bad cycles. And I'm like, oh yeah, but like were the bad ones more associated around Easter, around Christmas, around your birthday? It's like, oh yeah, December's always bad periods. You're like, so weird.
Hence why it's good to track and the symptoms as well as like not just what date did I get it.
You can start to, so absolutely. Like, so it might not be, oh, I ate, broccoli and fish today and therefore when my boss screamed at me the next day, I didn't care, but yes, essentially
coping.
it's, absolutely.
So I want to talk about social media for a minute because, I'm not a doom scroller, but I'm an avid scroller and my For You page.
It's all how you frame it.
I mean, my For You page is full of obviously like wellness type stuff because I scroll that and that's what comes up in my feed. And honestly, I think it is quite terrifying. And I don't know if you sort of get this as well, but what information is out there about what we should be eating, for our gut health or for optimal gut health. And I know you sort of touched on, whole foods and less processed, et cetera. But even within whole foods, like for every person that says, this thing is so good for you, there's somebody else who says this thing is, you'll die, like it's going to kill you. It's going to make you sick. It's full of toxins. You're just like,
yeah, fish is full of mercury, nuts are full of lectins, like grains are full of inflammation.
Salmon's full of parasites. And I want to talk about that a bit later. But how do we cut through all that noise?
Yeah.
Because it can be, I don't know, maybe I'm the only one that, that's been served all this information, but it's like, it's quite, it's exhausting and confusing.
I think our level of food confusion is at an all-time high. What I say to patients, and honestly, like being a naturopath, like when we talk about food and diet and we go through things, it's such a it can be such a negative profession if you're like, oh, well, fish, like chicken, but is it organic? And eggs, like, are they pasture-fed? And there's so much, is that food organic? And, where was that salmon farmed? And all those questions, like you said. At the end of the day, if you're eating food that came from nature in the last little while, right? So let's just say
it's pretty fresh.
It's freshish, right? It's fruits and vegetables, it's nuts and seeds, it's whole grains if you tolerate them, it's meat, chicken, fish. If you can get and afford and it's accessible to get, a better quality or organic or pasture fed or whatever, like great, excellent. You've got that option. But at the end of the day, like those whole foods are always going to be okay. Does that make sense? So different people will be like, oh yeah, they're not great with nuts or they're not great with certain lectins or, the farmed salmon, but just don't eat anything too much. Like, people are having salmon like five nights a week. You're like, okay, like, yes, it's hard to get non-farmed salmon, but I also like salmon. Maybe just do it like once a week or every second week. And then you could rotate that with some wild caught like whitefish, which is reasonably accessible on the other week, so you can just balance it around. I think people cut a lot of stuff out of their diet because they saw somebody say that it might not be good.
Yes.
And this is where we kind of have to come back to our intuition and listening to our bodies and going, okay, so I saw that X person, doctor, influencer, whatever, said nuts are really bad because apparently they have anti-nutrients or lectins that can block the absorption. Oh yeah, and some mold, add that, and some mycotoxins in there, but if it's just that theoretically and it's a whole food and you feel okay eating them, just go for it.
And you'll be
like trust your body.
Okay. Yes.
Think about what grandma would do before she had kind of Instagram.
Yes.
She didn't eat highly processed, unicorn poop sprinkle, blueberry, Cocoa Pops, that have added fiber in them. Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
Like that food seems really processed. It's blue and it's got glitter in it and it says it's a healthy breakfast. I'm going to intuitively say that's probably not a whole food. I've never seen that in nature.
Yes. Like I once heard this thing, which was like, if grandma wouldn't recognize what it was, then move on.
Yeah. Yeah. Or if you look at the ingredients in a packet and you couldn't cook it based on the ingredients, even if you don't know how to cook, but you're like, they're foods that I could buy. Like I see that as an ingredient list, like from a recipe rather than like, oh, where would I get that? What's that?
Yeah.
Then it's probably whole food-ish. Like we're like, okay, sometimes it's a packeted food, but it's like got normal ingredients in it. Say, for example, like a muesli. It's got oats, it's got nuts, it's got some dried fruit. You maybe have a little bit of maple syrup or honey or something. You're like, fine.
Yeah, you can read the ingredients. You understand what they are.
You could have made it yourself. You just didn't.
It's not like 100 numbers on the back and, things you can't
I was like, you could have made it. You just didn't, and that's convenient and
totally fine.
Fantastic. So I think it's trying to not get these really like stressful food. I think if you're following anybody that says that nobody should eat X because Y, it's probably time to just unfollow.
Yeah.
Unless it's don't eat rainbow pops because of, fine.
All these studies which are correctly executed,
Yes,
over a number of years has found, and it's like, great, now we're more informed about something that maybe we didn't know before because the research has been done.
Exactly. And it is really boring to kind of say, just be moderate and eat like a variety of foods. That way then if something was a bit of an issue, then at least you're not having too much of it. You're not having the exact same tuna salad every single day with the same lettuce, tomato, cucumber, 3 olives and a tin of the same brand of tuna, which is still healthy and good. But like, you're like, okay, like I'm going to rotate that with tin salmon and some falafels and some leftover chicken from last night. And I'm going to get rocket this time. And then next time I'm going to get the butter lettuce. And next time I'm going to get the cos. So just the same food,
in different
you're just
ways.
rotating it, like just slightly different nutritional profiles if you can. Or go, do you know what? I used to just have fast food every lunchtime and that same old tuna salad with those same 3 veggies in it, that's great for me. And be happy with yourself and stick with that until you're ready for a change.
Amazing.
So it's really boring and it doesn't create a great following to be like, these are the top foods you should never eat, nuts, grains, whatever. And it's like, you're like, okay, like that creates urgency, that creates, I'm going to follow that person. She's really pretty. She says like nuts are really bad and she's like got a really good body. And so therefore it must be related in some way. It's the boring, do you know what? Just be mindful, listen to your body. You guys have this. If grandma doesn't know what it is, don't eat it, and they're like, oh, that's kind of boring, but true.
Yeah. I think that's great advice.
And we can curate our social media, right? So, like if you click like this post doesn't like this, I'm going to unfollow it and then this doesn't suit me. It's really hard to change out your feed, but it's also not.
No.
Mine is now like, I've got this like running obsession now. So like mine's like changed to this, like, it's like, wow, like how quickly everything can change.
Totally. Based
now
on
it's like, this shoe's bad, this shoe's good. It's like, there's always like some extremism there. But if I go back to just, I don't know, like I was like wellness quotes, like I was like, what, everybody hasn't seen that wellness quote? I mean, like, gosh, like it's come off my feed like 5 times.
It's true. But like, I think it's also just like choose the people who you really trust. With their advice and who it's grounded in science. Like choose the people who, as opposed to like, it's not about the number of followers necessarily.
And be discerning. Like,
Totally.
But in the sense of like, if somebody that you enjoy following does say, this is really bad and you shouldn't eat this and whatever. And you're like, do you know what? I'm kind of like, you shouldn't eat leafy greens because, I'm making this up. No, then you could go, do you know what? I really like all of the other advice that Mary gives. That was really weird about the greens, whatever. And that's what you do in a friendship, right? So I'm like, Maha thinks like, I don't know, whatever. Like something that like, she thinks, women should always wear high heels because they, whatever, I'm making this up. But you're like, I don't have to agree with that.
Yes.
But I agree with most other things you say, which is why we're friends, for example.
Yes.
So, we're discerning in real life where we can take, like, we don't have to just follow a friend. We're like, 80% we might agree with what they say and 20% they voted differently to us or whatever and just let that to the side and don't create that as a conversation. So I think we also need to learn how to do that with social media and not expect that we're going to find our perfect clone person who's just going to tell us everything we want.
Oh,
like when did we?
Shame, Belinda, because I.
Except if it's
I'm
me.
like Belinda said. I'm like I'm doing it.
No, that's right. Well, that's there's always an excuse. There's always an exception.
Yeah, an exception. I think that's great
like
advice. Yeah. I think it's being discerning. Agreed. So I want to talk about fasting and cleanses. Okay, because I'm right into this. So I need to know what you think. So I want to start firstly with parasites, okay? And again, because this is coming up a lot, I think, and it's entering our wellness kind of atmosphere in terms of like there are parasites in our bodies, there's parasites in food. We should be trying to actively get rid of them, and there's certain processes around cleansing and and removing these parasites. So I guess my questions are all parasites bad? Do we need to be getting rid of parasites? I've heard some cross into the brain. There's some in our gut, in our poop, like you name
Spiders
it.
in your ears.
That too, the spider that lays its babies in the ears. So what's the deal?
Okay, so there definitely are parasites that can enter our system. A healthy gut may be able to get rid of that parasite without too much difficulty. Yay for that healthy gut. Other parasites, say for example like Giardia or Cryptosporidium, going to probably make you pretty dramatically sick. Like they're more like an infection. They probably might need a course of antibiotics or run their course. But they're like, you're at the doctor because like you haven't been off the toilet in a week, literally, right? So those ones aside.
Yes.
Then we've got like other parasites that we can find in our digestive system. So if you were to do a gut microbiome test, for example, they might say, oh, Maha, you've got some blastocystis in your gut, which is a known parasite, for example. Now, look, blastocystis, for example, is now starting to move into being called a commensal. That means like a bacteria that just might be in our gut naturally. And, so things move from, are we going to call them parasites anymore? Or are they like things that just are found in our gut? So there's like 10 different strains of blastocystis and only 2 of them are considered pathogenic but we can't split them out. So we don't know which one's which. So some do need to be treated, right? As in like you've had stabbing pain, every night, you wake up with stabbing pain or, you've got loose bowels or constipation or there's some digestive symptoms that, you've done some probiotics and you've eaten well and whatever and you've got tested and they're there.
So there's some indication that they are there. Not like I'm feeling perfectly healthy, but
I'm going to go and check because I must have parasites in my system because I need to be cleansed, right? If you don't have symptoms, say for example, like a family member has a parasite, right? So one of the kids has a parasite, like are you going to get tested if you don't have gut symptoms? I'm like, no. Let sleeping dogs lie. Are there some weeds in the rainforest? Yes. As long as the predominant species, the good ones in the rainforest, there's still lots of flowers and whatever is in the rainforest, then it's fine. That system has it under control. So they're not things that necessarily get out. They're not just in your brain, right? If you've got a parasite in your brain, you probably in ICU, right? So don't worry about that. In your gut though, if you're asymptomatic, I mean, it's a difficult one, right? So you might test, say, for example, like a child with autism or other sort of, delays or nervous system issues, and we find out there is an overgrowth of strep or something like that. So sometimes they might need to be treated. That's not actually a parasite though. That's more like an imbalance of good and bad bacteria. Yeah. So I guess it's finding out, do you actually have a parasite? The amount of people that come and say, oh, I had some sort of healing and they said, I've got parasites and I want to do a parasite cleanse now. I'm always like, I need to test your stool, right? Yeah. Like I'm not just giving you a parasite cleanse for an imaginary parasite, right? Well, so it can be tested.
Yes.
And then if you have symptoms that are associated with that parasite, then it may need to be treated.
Yes.
Sometimes the amount of time and damage that you can do to your gut trying to get rid of a parasite, sometimes it's better to just lift up the good ones and like as long as there's enough good army, a little bit of bad army doesn't really make a difference.
Okay. Yep. What about, say, water fasts?
Yep.
I'm seeing these a lot, 3-day water fasts.
Yep. So there's lots of, again,
cleanses,
like people love extreme stuff, don't they? Like people love like, I'm going to do something like crazy. And I've done all the things. So, I get it. But so basically, look, I wouldn't recommend that just any old body does a 3-day water fast, particularly women. It is something that I would say would be guided under a practitioner or you're at a wellness retreat or something and somebody's guiding you. I don't think for most people there's probably too much wrong with like a 24-hour, but I still would see a practitioner first and make sure that it's going to kind of be okay for you because it is a bit more extreme than you think, right? Yeah. If you're looking though at like, say like even just like, like cleansers, for example, like you said, do we need to cleanse? Do we need to, the way that I often sort of think about like cleanses and detoxes and things like that, like we love to use those words, but really it's kind of just giving your body a break, right? So you're like, I'm going to have a break from coffee and alcohol and sugar and maybe grains and dairy and processed foods and have, say, for example, like I'm going to do a week of plant-based, lots of vegetables, getting some proteins in there in terms of legumes and nuts and seeds and hummus and things like that. And like, so that might be a way of kind of like having a cleanse or a detox.
Yes.
That like your body knows how to detoxify. So it's not really fixing that. It's kind of just giving your system a break from having to actually detoxify all the stuff that probably shouldn't be in it anyway.
Yes.
That makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. And I think coming back to fasting as well. And, I mean, so many people these days are doing intermittent fasting.
Yeah.
So as like almost a way of life, a way of living. Yeah. What are your thoughts? Yeah.
So there's some really good evidence on intermittent fasting. Most of it's done on men. As per usual. So men tend to respond very well to intermittent fasting. Some women also respond well, generally not such a long fast as men tend to respond to. If there's anything sort of hormonal or thyroid going on or adrenals, we've got to be careful of fasting. But that doesn't mean that you can't, eat dinner at 6 or 7 o'clock and not have breakfast till like 9 or 10, for example. I'm like, that's like, it's still like a fast. Or I mean, look, sleeping overnight's a fast, right? It's just like you can extend it out a little bit. But other people will do well, particularly if they've got lots of weight to lose and there's no adrenal issues or thyroid issues or hormonal issues, and they feel fine waiting until lunchtime, having lunch, a small afternoon snack and an early dinner. If that helps them to lose weight and it feels good, then can be great.
Yeah.
There are some studies coming out and have recently just come out and coming out on women. But, we are a lot more complex. So it's if you've done it and you've tried it, and again, coming back to like listening to your body, you've done it, you tried it feels good for you, it works for you, no ill effects, great. If you're like starving and like hating the world until 12 when you eat and then you're overeating, do you know what I mean? And then, like your blood sugar levels are going crazy and you can't sleep properly and, and your skin's breaking out. You're like, maybe this isn't for me. It's so weird. Yeah.
I love that. So speaking of skin issues, like how does, I guess, an imbalance in our gut or in that microbiome kind of contribute to skin issues? Because we talk about the gut-skin connection quite a lot.
Yes.
How does that show up?
Yeah, so like eczema, psoriasis, acne, certainly eczema, particularly in kids because there's just so much less going on with them and we control what they eat for the most part. But, if, say, a child with eczema and you do the right course of probiotics and often with some fish oils, maybe a little bit of diet change, they respond really well. So it is about trying to kind of get that good, and again, our skin has its own microbiome as well, right? So, I mean, if you were to put a microscope up on your skin, you're like a magnifying glass. I mean, you'd be horrified, right? It looks like, talk about your parasites, like it looks like there's things crawling all over, but that's your microbiome. It's meant to kind of be there. So, certainly those sort of good bacteria, particularly the Lactobacillus rhamnosus, GG strain, that's got lots of good evidence on eczema, particularly in children. So again, it's that whole body system of like healthy gut, healthier skin. Obviously, there's some other things associated as well, but like that's definitely a big piece of the puzzle.
And tell me, in terms of like, inflammation. So a lot of the time, people say I've got, chronic inflammation, say. How is that related to gut health?
Yeah, so a lot of inflammation might be, say, for example, like for you, for example, it might have been the gluten. You're like, it was inflaming my body and creating this brain fog, for example. But other people will be totally fine with it. So some of it is like the food that we're eating, or our gut might not be breaking down that food particularly well. Our gut also does produce and affect our inflammatory mediators. So, if we don't have enough of those, then our body does kind of go into inflammation. But a lot of that is also potentially eating the wrong food, which affects your gut health, but then also can make inflammation worse.
And coming back to what you were saying earlier about stress, and then that stress can cause inflammation.
Yeah, potentially in some people. Yeah. So some people have that sort of like that's just added fuel to their fire that's already there.
All right, a few rapid fire questions before we wrap.
Shoot.
Okay, kombucha or kefir? Which one?
Kefir.
What is one thing or trend that you've seen people rush to for gut health that just doesn't hit the mark?
Oh my God, Yakult. Sorry, sponsors.
Most underrated food for gut health?
Ooh, banana, prebiotic.
Fiber?
Yeah, fiber and prebiotic.
There you go. Biggest gut health myth you wish people would stop believing?
Yeah, they're like just cutting out food groups.
Yes, good one. Colonics, yes or no?
Or I'm a no.
Oh.
Yeah. I'm a send it out that way gal.
Fair.
You can look, it can be done right and can be really useful and people do love them. Speak to a gastroenterologist and they'll tell you how many perforated bowels that they've seen. So after that conversation, I became a firm no. You also do take out a lot of your good bacteria and things too. So it's not my specialty. I mean, people do them and love them and that's great for them.
Yeah.
I'm open to anything.
Yeah.
But, if you need to get your bowels working, then you need to work on getting your bowels working from within rather than I just see people who rely on colonics to kind of like clear their bowel.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's a reason that it's not working properly and it can be helped for most people.
Like you need to work out what's actually going on.
Yeah.
Last thing, what are 3 things that we can do right now to unlock better gut health?
Yeah, good question. Add fermented foods into your daily diet, yogurt, kefir, kimchi, sauerkraut, miso. Up your intake of salad and vegetables. You probably knew that I was going to say that. And then increase your prebiotic foods and or resistant starches, so those cooked and cooled potatoes. Yum, hello. And, bananas, garlic, leek, onion, nuts and seeds. So like basically whole foods, just split into different categories.
I love it so much. This actually made me hungry.
Good.
Thank you so, so much. Your expertise is always appreciated and thanks for unlocking this with us.
Well, that's a wrap on Wellness Unlocked. If it hit home, then hit follow, share it, and dive into the show notes for all of the links and any of the resources. Head to SWIISH.com for more, and if you're in Australia, you can also find us in Priceline stores. Now, we want to hear from you what resonated, what you want more of, and what you're curious about next. This is your space for wellness that works.
Remember, everything we cover is for general informational purposes only and is not a substitute for medical advice. Always consult your healthcare professional before making any changes to your health or wellness routine.